Hey, welcome to the Christ Revealed YouTube channel. I got a great interview coming up for you. Really great to be here with you. Enjoy this interview. But the skeptics are using the term faith in an abusive manner.
Good point.
And I think that's interesting because, I would listen to what you say, other apologists that, I've been having these conversations with, and the construct of faith is, I think, incompatible with how they're approaching their faith in Christianity. And, so
even the average Christian.
Yeah, even the average Christian. So it's been very interesting because, there's zero doubt in my mind at this point, and we're heading to Israel pretty soon to go even deeper. But there's very little doubt in my mind that the for lack of a better term, brand known as Christianity is completely misunderstood from the outside world. And I think and some things are coming clear to me as I'm hearing the types of evidence that you're presenting and what your experiences are interacting with these people. If you were to now look at the resurrection, and if you were to say, kind of as a highlighted summary, here's the pieces of evidence that have lined up, and maybe even in more modern times have lined up because of some of the archaeological evidence that's come, other things that have come along, to really say that the evidence is just these are the highlights of the evidence that's very compelling about the validity of the resurrection.
I'll tell you what. Let me do it in terms of making a quick comment about a methodology I use, how I marshal these things, yes, and what I use. When I did my dissertation, back to my lead professor, mm-hmm, who made the comment, "We're not saying you can't use the New Testament. Just don't say it's true because the New Testament is true. Mm-hmm. But build a case by using accredited passages from any material. Use accredited passages." Okay, so what I did was, in that dissertation, I went back and I said, there's a certain number of facts, and I think I started with about a dozen of them. Mm-hmm. There's facts that virtually every person who is... Now, you got to be a specialist. You can't be somebody who says, well, yeah, I'm interested in religion. I blog... once a month for my friends, and I have a PhD. What's your PhD in? It's in electrical engineering. Well, I mean, that's fine, but I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal with you. I won't talk about electrical engineering if you don't try to tell me what the New Testament means, because you have to work in our own fields. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, let's just use the specialists. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you're an atheist New Testament professor. Don't care if you're an agnostic classical you study Greco-Roman civilization. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Just know the data, and I'm going to use a list of facts. So I started with a dozen, mm-hmm, then I cut them down to a half dozen, and I kept asking, how low can you go? Mm-hmm. How much data do we have for this or that? And I came up with this argument that I call the minimal facts, or sometimes I call it the lowest common denominator argument. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, if I had 100 facts in the New Testament, I get the resurrection easily if you'll give me those 100 facts. If you give me a semi-skeptical New Testament, it's a decent source, but it's not inspired. Don't talk supernatural with me. What's the chances of getting to the resurrection? With 50 facts instead of 100? You might be able to get around it. Mm-hmm. But what if I start with a list of a dozen? Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, no, I'll give you more than that. No, that's okay. I only you have... And you tell your skeptical friend, you have way too much faith. I only need a dozen. And then I'll say, hey, I don't need a dozen. I'll use a half dozen. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, what do you think about these? And you go, I'll give you all half dozen, because I only picked the ones that are best accredited. Mm-hmm. And the minimal facts argument says, if I only use the data, mm-hmm, which are allowed by the vast majority of critical scholars, and mm-hmm, they're allowed because each one you pull out, mm-hmm, the facts come in like this, so I could get 10 different perspectives, 5 different perspectives, whatever, mm-hmm, on why that fact is true. Mm-hmm. Now, you allow it, right? Why do you allow it? Well, I don't know. I've looked it over, and the data look pretty good for this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if I assemble 6 of those, what if the resurrection looks like the best option using your Bible? Mm-hmm. So you go, oh, you mean like Jefferson's famous scissors and paste Bible, mm-hmm, that famous picture of the Bible where the acid was poured on it, and there's a lot of holes, and when you open it up, not every verse is there. Yeah, that Bible. You're going to give me how many facts again? I'll give you a dozen. Yeah, well, I just need a half dozen of them. And I like to play this how low can you go thing.
Right.
And Mike Lacona and guys and I who do this, we'll get down to 3 or 4. and I'll say, I'll use your data, and using only your data, because they're so well attested. You're an agnostic, so there's got to be a reason you allow these facts. I can still show that the resurrection of Jesus is the best explanation for the data we have. Now, if your comeback is, which is common today, if your comeback is, yeah, but I don't know that world in which the resurrection occurs, then I might have to go, time out. Let's talk about a potential God, or let's talk about near-death experiences and afterlife, and then reopen the discussion and say, if we do know something about a Narnia or a Yellow Brick Road or a Middle Earth, if there really is a reality there, there's somebody out there who created me and has a plan for my life. I mean, if there's something like this, now I've sufficiently closed off a couple of your big loopholes, and you have to handle that data face on. So you go, I don't know, hallucination. Well, now I've got you where I want you because you haven't thought about this. And so that's kind of the way I close it down. I will use the critic's Bible, and I use any number of big-name guys, because the way to argue today is to say, we can't trust the whole New Testament, the critic's view.
Right.
We can't trust the whole New Testament, but I can trust these pieces of data. And then I'll step in and say, what can we do with those pieces of data? And I'll weave a case and I'll say, bingo, we got resurrection.
Yep. So, and basically, as you're saying, what's based on these facts that are the ones that you're willing to accept, you choose the the areas that you want to accept, and basically the idea is, what's the most plausible explanation
Of just these.
Of just these.
Right. Now, the critic often comes back to me, and if you go down through history, if you go back 200 or 300 years when higher criticism starts, the one single objection that I've been able to find down through history goes like this, and it's very, very common. But the gospel accounts, especially those surrounding the crucifixion, burial, and resurrection, have so many discrepancies in them. Discrepancies like what? Well, how many women went to the tomb? How many angels were at the tomb? Well, Matthew mentions one, Mark mentions one, Luke 2, John 2. See, we're not too far off. One or two are, it's not bad. But you can say, well, who are the women? Matthew has 2 women. Mark has 3. Luke has 3, but one of them is different from Mark's third one. And John only has Mary Magdalene, but when she walks away to tell the disciples that the tomb's empty, she says, they've taken the Lord and we don't know where they've laid him. So there's more than one. John's just telling you, I don't care to give you a list of their names. So they'll say, well, what do you do with discrepancies? I like to play this little game with them where they'll say, I think there's discrepancies in the gospel accounts. And I'll go, and? Well, doesn't that bother you? And I'll go, and? Well, that means the text is not true, does it? Does it? If you read a Greco-Roman historian, there's 2 things that don't work out. Does that mean that emperor was never in control? No. What if you listen to the 2 coaches after yesterday's big football game? One of them says, that guy's foot was out of bounds. I was standing right there, but the replay shows his foot was in bounds. You go, and? What are you saying? I'm saying that play with his foot did not change the game because that won by 2 touchdowns. I don't care what happened to the guy's foot. So we make allowances. And that's the way we normally argue. The point I'm trying to get across when I go and is I'm not arguing on the 100% we don't agree on. I'm arguing on the things that you think are impregnable. I'm using your facts. And I don't care how many women went to the tomb. We can talk about it later. I don't care about the angels. I want to know what you do with these 6 facts.
Right.
And if I can get a resurrection from these 6 facts, as Paul Meyer, retired professor of ancient history at Western Michigan University, he says there was a great fire in Rome. The sources are very divergent on whether Nero caused it or someone else did, how many sectors of the city were burned, exactly what happened. We can't put it together, but we know there was a great fire in Rome.
Right.
So if you and I can't agree on every last detail, you give me the 6 that you trust. Well, I'm thinking about recalling one of those. Well, I can see the fire's getting a little too hot. Right? So I'm using your data. Don't say, but I don't know about the women and the angels. We never once brought up the women and the angels, so don't bring them up now.
Right.
So I'm only building on the positive facts we both agree on. So it cuts down a lot of the garbage in conversation. Then somebody inevitably goes, Well, forgive me. I'm just curious. Are you Calvinist or are you Arminian? Listen, let's do that over lunch tomorrow. But will you answer my question about these 6 facts? You have to stay on task.
That's it for this particular interview. Thanks for joining me. Really excited to take this ongoing journey with you as we keep bringing more content. If you haven't already, you really should subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of phenomenal content coming down the road into the future that you'll want to know about. Leave a comment down here. I think people would love to hear from you, and then you can hear from them too. If you liked it, go ahead and give a like. It only takes half a second, and share this with people that you care about. The world needs more light in it right now. So thanks for being with me. Hope to connect with you again soon.